Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about this 3D printed model that I've painted. Um, Very briefly, it's not going to be a long one because I didn't do much to him. Um, this is a little Highland Cow. It's by Kijai. There's a link to the free STL in the description below, as well as links to my a video about my materials that I use, as well as to my blog where I have lots of still photographs and I go into each model that I paint as well. Um, so yeah, this little guy had he printed really well. He had a few supports on his belly area, um, and the first thing that I did was I primed him. And I let that dry. I made sure that I didn't prime him, and when I prime I am just using acrylic paints, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't, the paint's never very thick because all these lovely lumps and bumps that you can see aren't just painted on stripes, they're actually lumpy, and I didn't want to fill those in. So I primed it, I let it dry completely over the course of a day. And then when I was ready to paint, I chose my base colors. Now, for his nose, that was pink. For his horns, that was white. For his coat, I did a dark brown because I knew that I wanted to get that dark brown right into these crevices. And for his feet, it was also a dark brown. But for his face, I did kind of a raw sienna color, because Highland cows tend to be a little bit red. Right. So once I'd blocked in the colors, I added in shadows. Now, the shadows were dark brown washes. I dirtied up his nose, I dirtied up his horns. You can see I kind of did a bit of a gradient here on his horns. This wasn't all done with a brush. I also tend to get my fingers in there. I'll apply the paint and I'll just kind of manipulate it to where I want it. There's no wrong answer really when you're finding your feet painting. Just try lots of different things. You'll eventually find techniques that work for you. I made sure to get deep shadows in all the fur. I dirtied up his hooves. Then I let that dry. And I started, I started adding in the highlights. Highlights were with a dry brush, and it was a bit of raw sienna mixed with white, and a bit of tan as well, and I just brushed on the highlights very carefully so that I didn't fill it in all the way down. I kept my shadows. I added more white to the horns to bring out the white where I dirtied it up with the brown wash. Highlighted the ears, highlighted his nose, and highlighted his hooves. Then I went back and forth several times with shadows and highlights. Because this model is quite lumpy and bumpy, it took me a while to really find a balance where I was happy. I thought it was going to be really simple to paint, but it turned out to be quite a challenge for me. And not in a bad way, it was definitely a new experience. I really love the way that the design incorporated all these lumps instead of just, making it far more simple. It gives him so much character. And I think that was largely in part to the fact that it was modeled after a little polymer clay sculpture that I made. And when I made the sculpture, all of these little lines, all these little strands of hair were actually individually rolled and applied to the body. And it was extremely tedious, I have to say. Printing it out was definitely a lot easier. And I think I got a better overall model with the 3D print rather than going through all the trouble of sculpting it myself. So, yeah, that is just about it for this model. Um, really just trial and error, to be honest, and it came out all right. So, yeah, bye.